Good evening, everybody. It's been really has been a nice Thanksgiving, and we're at the tail end of that. And if you're like me and you not so much you live your life based on the school calendar, but your life is really attuned to the school calendar, then that leaves just 3 weeks from right now till Christmas break, pending how your school does the next 3 weeks and when you get out for Christmas break. So, my name is Daniel Young. I'm the owner and founder of Adapted Perspective and the Adapted Perspective social media platforms. And I'm back talking closed end funds. It's been an just an interesting week since the last video. And so, this is an unedited video. Who knows what you'll hear in the background as I film these in my house, which quite honestly should not be a lot right now. I am not a financial advisor. I am a strategist and a financial strategist, and I don't speak like the herd. I walk at limited company, and oftentimes I walk alone. And quite honestly, I mean, with full transparency, hopefully I am not blowing smoke up your keister, and I'm talking life and finances. So, what used to be the total length of time on my videos used to be a lot longer because I would wrap in a ton of strategy and updates and a lot of everything in between into these videos, and not the case anymore. There's a separate strategy video that I will remake as needed. So hopefully in theory, this video will be a lot shorter. I will mention some little stuff, but the bigger picture long range focuses are in a different video. So what I will mention this week, the number of overall mortgage applications increased a little bit, which I think is laughable to a degree. I mean, we want more people in the market buying homes for sure, but mortgage rates or the mortgage application uh, percentage increased because the rates dropped just, I mean, not even a tenth of a percent. You're looking at rates, you can air quote it, you're looking at rates dropping maybe 0.05% down to maybe 6.8 overall. And that puts people in a bind. I mean, you've got a lot of people waiting and hoping that rates drop. But I don't think those numbers are going to go down that fast anytime soon. Maybe in the future. I mean, I would love to see those rates drop in the future again. But at this point, those 2.5% rates were almost flukish. I've heard of people my age. I've heard of people my age talking about their parents' um, original home loans being in the 15% plus range. I mean, I cannot fathom. Uh, and then it dropped into the 6 to 8% range for a while, and then we have the uh, pandemic rates of almost next to nothing, 2% up to maybe 4%. And then it went up, and now it's coming back down in quotes to 6.8. And I don't want a normalized 6.8 mortgage rate, but that's pretty much what the current basket is. So if you're looking to buy a home, I don't see that coming down anytime soon. So what maybe you were hoping to buy a $400,000 home, whether it's actually worth that or not, that's a different question. But if you were looking to buy a $400,000 home on a 6.8 rate, you might be looking at a $200,000 home at a 6.8 rate, or maybe you can buy it down a half percent to 6.3. But it's just those lower rates, as much as we want them, it's just not happening right now. And related to that, I mean, I'll get into this a little bit more, but the next jobs report is coming out soon. And after that, God, the October jobs report of 12,000 jobs added. Talk about a stagnant economy. Um, and in hindsight, people are attributing the 12,000 to anything but the Biden Harris um, just failed economy. Uh, the guardians of our economy have done a horrible job. So, I mean, sweep the crumbs under the rug wherever you want. I don't really, I would love to see better numbers, but I mean, after October, I don't know what November's going to show. Um, of those shepherds, one has already left. Jerome Powell, uh, Federal Reserve chair, is saying he's not going to leave, which I don't think he's going to have a choice. But Janet Yellen, uh, Treasury Secretary, left her post, already resigned her post, and that's good. But now we have nobody leading the ship, but it's not like we wanted her as captain to begin with. She leaves a shipwreck, just wake of disaster. Um, she had the brand name, and she had yeah, it's Janet Yellen. But she had the branding, the pedigree, the contacts, the resume, like everything you would expect for her in order to do a good job. And yet she just did not have the ability to do a good job and put the U.S. first compared to whatever else she was doing in there. In her wake of biggest concern, two biggest concerns is one, how the bond market's going to react going forward to what she just left a disaster, it sounds like. I mean, we had these super low rates. We have all this outstanding debt, which, I mean, we can blame anybody and everybody for the outstanding debt. Excuse me. But she didn't refinance any of that debt. So we've got a ton of debt financed at higher rates and coming up due. And she never refinanced that debt at a lower rate. So if you bought a mortgage today at 6.8 and rates dropped tomorrow to 4%, there are a ton of people who would say you shouldn't refinance right after you get it for whatever reason. Like you want to wait 18 months to 2 years to refinance, or when it hits a certain, when your house hits a certain percentage loan to value, or it's not going to be beneficial for you to refinance until a certain overall mortgage rate. But honestly, if you bought it near 7 and tomorrow it drops to 4, I mean, you could refinance. You would probably lose some money. But you would refinance. You get a much better rate. Why wouldn't you refinance or, uh, yeah, however you want to say that? Why wouldn't you refinance all this crazy debt at a lower rate? Why would you allow all of that to continue at a higher rate unless your focus is not the American economy and the American people? And that's really what she leaves in her wake. It's a focus on anything other than the US economy, or better said, it's a focus on anything related to the US economy that improves the economy for all Americans. She leaves a pretty big, interesting, just utter freaking mess in her wake. And I don't know. I mean, with a slowed economy, I would say recession. And we're getting into that forward swing of hope in the like that. I don't know the term, but when you feel the next wave, like if you're standing at the beach and you feel the next wave, it's actually pulling at you and pulling you into the next wave. So I, I have hope that Trump and uh, his transition team will turn around this economy. I don't know how soon it's going to happen, and it's going to be interesting on how it all plays out. To have somebody who knows what they're actually doing, leading an economy forward, working with the Federal Reserve Chair, and quite honestly, I hope Rand Paul has a huge. Uh, I hope he's got a huge part in this between in Doge. And I mean, we've had the Federal Reserve for years, but quite honestly, we could do without the Federal Reserve and the IRS. Um, currently, currently the Fed is printing money. They're not telling anybody they're printing money, but they're printing money and they're cutting rates slowly. And it seems like a really bad way to steer the economy. So rates are falling, I guess. I mean, we started with a 0.5% that was late, and now we have a 0.25%, and we're wondering kind of why we did it when inflation's rising. So you've got somewhat lowering rates, you've got the long end of the yield curve rising, and then you've got the bond market wondering if we're truly going to have a recession, and inflation is still rising. And the only reason inflation would rise if the Fed's truly cutting rates, right? And they're hoping people put more money into the market. But if the Fed's truly cutting rates and they're steering the economy, then people are, I mean, you can look at it as a whole and say people are going to be more willing to invest in whatever with lower rates, but we're not seeing that. Mortgage applications are up, but not by much, right? We're not seeing that. So the only way we can truly contrive inflation rising is if the Fed is both cutting rates and pumping money into the market. And that's not helping us. That's how we got in trouble to begin with. So, gosh, it's just all around. If I've seen the memes, I've seen the arguments, it's like, well, if we don't have the Fed, if we don't have the Federal Reserve, or we don't have this, then what would we replace it with? And Ron Paul's famous line is, well, if you're cutting out cancer, it's not like you're not going to replace it with anything else but life. So if we lost the Federal Reserve and we lost the IRS, would you want to replace it with something else that would take more of your money? The Federal Reserve does quiet inflation because it's an easy way to steal more of your money. And it's manipulated inflation, right? The more money we print, it devalues the US dollar. And that dollar is only worth as much as you think it's worth on paper, right? Over the last 3.5 years, the perceived value of the dollar has dropped almost 20 cents. That's how much money the Fed has printed. And for the IRS taking however much of your paycheck, if we removed the IRS, would you want another tax receptacle? Or would you just rather keep that money in your pocket and invest it however you want? I would much rather keep the money in my pocket and invest it however I want. So, all of that said, where does that leave us going forward? Like, if we're investing tomorrow, where do we go? Because I can talk politics for a while, but I don't want to get lost in that rabbit hole. Um, so, where does that leave us? And it's really honestly the same positioning to the point where my wife even keyed on it. As we were chatting in the car of, here's the market update and here's all the stuff. And I mean, what really is the best place to be right now? So I'll filter this out and then I'll get to the answer to, or I'll get to my wife's take and I'll get to my own. So we're going to look at just the triple asterisks. We're going to come over here and that's this list. But we're going to trim it out further. So we're going to take everything but the monthly payers off. We're going to rank it by yield and then take everything out that's not 9% or above, unless it's got a really good reason to be on the list, like this one, who is still operating at 54% off, which is like paying 46 cents for every dollar invested. Um, I think overall, utilities, we missed the boat. I mean, you can add it if you want, but you're going to pay more for it. But utilities, we missed the boat on. Stocks, just straight stocks, still not my cup of tea right now. I mean, I'm interested in this ETB batch, but it's just not the place where I want to be right now. Calamos, same idea. These Calamos funds I've tracked for a while, but it's still just not, honestly, still just not sold on stocks right now overall. And TEEF, I've said my piece with TEEF for a while. So we're going to eliminate this batch. So we have real estate um, closing in on an 8% yield, but it's also gone up. 5.2 is what it was last week. NBXG is technology. CIF and FCO are loans. I'm going to take bonds and loans, but I'm going to take bonds off the list this week and go a different route. Maggie's utilities and kind of the same thing. Like this, you can get lots of things, maybe not lots, it's not completely spread out, just random stocks, but you get real estate, energy, and utilities as a basket. Not quite a portfolio can for every corner of the market, but that's a decent spread. So if I can get utilities here, plus energy transfer and real estate, instead of this, I mean, that's almost two times the difference. So, and BRW used to be just bond, but it's more stuff now. But if I cull the list, if I really sort the list, this is what it leads to. So we can rank it by yield, we can rank it by discount, we can rank it by price. But at the end of the day, I come up with this basket of these three, and it's based on this. Consumer, not an option right now. Real estate and tech, or real estate and oil, top of the list. Bonds, because of the shaky bond market. I think if you find a really great deal on bonds, uh, where you're either at your overall dollar cost average price point, or if you're below it, I think that's a great pickup. I think if you're above that mark, then it might not be as great of a pickup. Just kind of depends on your portfolio and what you're tracking. And in our case, I mean, yes, this is our portfolio. So to leave BRW on the list, 70 cents, 60, yeah, 70 cents in the grand scheme of things, 70 cents is not a huge thing overall. Like if eventually we're going to pick up another, who knows, like if we picked up another 600 shares, if we picked up another 2,000 shares of this, you're going to buy it at different points over time. And then that overall dollar cost averages of whenever you're buying is going to impact your overall price point of share. I get that. And on my end of things, if the strategy works for whichever funds we're targeting, right? Like if we were targeting bonds, then we're primarily looking at these three funds, maybe this one because it does have a hodgepodge. But we'd be looking at these three funds, maybe this one, and then trying to pick the best overall deal, whether that's high corporate all around plus additional investments, or same idea like portfolio to can, bonds, and other stuff. We could pick the best of those four. And I mean, honestly, if you could spend at or under your average buy-in price, then that's an amazing deal. If they're all priced over, that's a slightly more challenging situation. So for all of these things, of these three, HLB is currently priced higher than our existing average. In BXG, same thing, priced higher than our existing average cost to share. And HFRO is pretty much right on. If I go back, Chifaro, you can round it, that's 5.88. This is 5.89. So it's pretty much the same thing. But each of these three funds does very different things. It's not a straight portfolio can where it touches every corner of the market, but it's targeted based on our interest. So you get real estate, you get energy, you get utilities, consumer, not whatever, but tech. And what we're looking at is real estate and oil, and then maybe these other two pending portfolio and or pending your portfolio and buy-in. So why real estate? We're leaving our pickup grocery stores. We get back in town. We're doing errands. We're picking up stuff, at the uh, whatever. I can't think of that name, but at any rate, you're curbsiding your groceries. I'm going through all this stuff with my wife, just like talking through the strategy of things, and she's like, "Heck, just buy a grocery store," and that's pretty accurate. Like high inflation, people got to eat. You're not buying straight consumer stuff. I mean, people are going to buy ketchup and mustard and pickles. And that's the argument. Like, even in a recession, people are going to buy ketchup, mustard, and pickles. Well, right. Yeah. But I mean, Kraft Heinz has decreased their dividend, and you're not exactly getting a great deal with a single stock. And single stocks, especially consumer stocks for that stuff, is just not my cup of tea. So instead of buying groceries, buy a grocery store. But don't buy the grocer that's renting the building. Find out who actually owns the building and is renting to the grocer, and pick your chain: HEB, Randall's, Kroger, Albertsons, Safeway, Brookshire Brothers, Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, like whatever grocery store you're going to, chances are they don't actually own the building. Find out who owns the building, and that's who you want to invest in, because of all things, we saw Family Dollar that looks like it went out of business, which is something you don't see in a small town. Like that Family Dollar is the grocery store in a small town. And at some point, somebody else will come in and reoccupy the building. So don't, I mean, I would find out who owns the building and go from there. But I still think real estate's the best play going forward. And it's not just storage units and single family and multifamily. So like single family, one door, multifamily, multiple doors, duplex, two doors, triplex, three doors, quad, four doors. Um, Commercial building, like I still think real estate's the way to go, and we're still behind the curve or behind the demand. Like we're short supply, so we're behind the demand on general housing, so single family, multifamily, condo, apartment, all that stuff. We're behind the curve of what's being built, and we're also behind the curve on healthcare with it with an aging population worldwide, but also in the U.S. The U.S. birth rate is down because people don't want to have a kid in this environment. The hope of owning a home in your 20s and 30s has been pushed back into your 40s and 50s. And most people don't want to have kids when they're 40 and 50. And most people don't want to have kids now when they can't afford. So you have a declining birth rate in the US. You have an aging population. You have people struggling to find a single family home to buy. That pushes a increased demand into multifamily living or multifamily complexes. It also pushes demand into healthcare. So regardless of what you think about COVID and those injections and all that other stuff, we have an aging population who's going to need a lot more healthcare going forward, regardless of what RFK does to combat all of that. So I think targeted real estate investments are a really good idea in our current point, like wherever we are, however you want to say that in the current market, but also looking forward down the line. With that, what'll help that is oil production. Uh, I got into the current regime stance on oil and Trump's stance on oil. Trump's stance is drill, baby, drill, drive inflation down through production of oil, which makes a lot of sense. And we're in this tech boom and AI boom, and having to fight for oil to produce technology is spiking cost. If we become energy independent and drive the cost of oil down, the cost of tech will go down in order to make. It'll further spur that tech and AI boom. So I think that's a good option. So HFRO based on discount, but also just based on their overall portfolio. There we go. Uh, you have NBXG, which is all tech, and then HLB, which is a combination of really of everything except for the consumer, like the little bit of consumer in the portfolio. So if it's us, where are we investing? The best deal remains real estate. You can argue, you can make a great argument for the other two. Um, I mean, you can make a fantastic argument for the other two. For, I mean, gosh, yield. I mean, so portfolio, yield, discount, price point. I mean, I'd rather not pay that, but I think the price is going to continue to go up. So even that's higher than what we currently have on average for 13, 18, right? That's higher than our current average. But at the same time, I think the overall cost or worth or value of that fund will continue to go up. So even though it's 13, 18 now, if it reaches 15, you're still getting it cheaper now than later. But if you forced me to buy something tomorrow, and of what we have, I mean, I like buying things in sets of 50 or 100. What we don't have is that right now. So given the option between this one and that one, it's a toss up. I mean, we've got 400 of this and 200 of that. And I can still come away cheaper here overall with a little bit left over. Like if I picked up 50, 300, 418. Next round of dividends coming in will be about 120 bucks. So 530 minus 300, right? That's 230. I mean, that's a little bit more play, but we could still swing this. Either way. So if you forced me to buy something, I would pick HFRO. I mean, discount, the yield will come back. Square foot, their operable online square footage is increasing. Uh, the cost has gone up a little bit. That's good. The dividend will come back. Um, I do. I still think the fear and worry on HFRO is just so overblown. So if you forced me, I would pick up another 50. But I mean, truth be told, we're not investing tomorrow because we did just pick up another 100 spot of HFRO. There we are. Where'd we go? Yeah, like the week before Thanksgiving, we picked up another 100 spot. So I prefer to wait. I don't unless the market does crazy stuff. I like spreading out the buys like every month as opposed to like every 2 weeks, but that's me. So if you twisted my arm Monday, I would pick HFRO. But I mean, you're not going to twist my arm and force me to do this. So we'll see what the market does for the week. We'll see if I change my mind and we buy something midweek, or if we just continue watching to see how it goes. But that's really what it is. I mean, it comes down to the best deals is real estate, technology, or real estate, technology in this mix, um, which is still a Highland fund, but you get this mix of bonds, which is, I mean, no one really knows what the bond market's going to do. Once you get this mix of bonds plus the other fun stuff, which is kind of like a portfolio in a can, but not quite. So that's what I have for the week. Um, 3 picks. Um, yeah, 3 picks with one I would definitely pick if you made me, but the other two just as good pending your portfolio. So if you like the content, consider subscribing to my channel. Hit the like button. It really does help push videos out. If you want to find me day to day and just talk overall financial strategy, come find me on Instagram with the same adapted perspective handle. And if you want to talk closed end funds, just closed end funds and investing, then comment on a video and let's have a chat. So, regardless of what you have for the week, I hope it goes well. I hope you got to enjoy it. I hope you got to enjoy Thanksgiving. I hope you got time off. Um, and even if you didn't, I hope you have a great week this week, and I hope you get time off soon. Um, yeah, and on my end of things, it is 3 weeks till Christmas break, and yeah, if you have not planned Christmas yet, if you're hoping to not get sucked into the commercialism of Christmas, if you're hoping to survive Christmas without a budget, I would tell you to come find me on Instagram and let's talk strategy and finances overall. Uh, but that aside, whatever you have for the week, I hope your week goes well. And whatever goals you currently have, I hope you're making progress towards those goals. And if you want help with that, come find me on Instagram and let's chat. So have a great week, everybody. I will see y'all on another video. Bye bye.